Hello and welcome to the new Intermezzo Championship season. If you remember it, I actually also covered the last season of the Intermezzo Championship, where I still played in the Grandmaster division. Todd Silence at the end was able to win that season, but for me the season didn't go very well, and at the end I got relegated, meaning now for this season I'm playing in the Master division, and of course I want to try my best to come back to Grandmaster as quickly as possible. I plan on covering most or ideally all games of the season, meaning before we are taking a look at the first game, I will first introduce my four opponents to you that are in my group. First of all, we will start with Danny Boy, a player who has now consistently been playing on Platinum and Master level. And if we take a look at the last two Intermezzo Championship seasons, in the last season he played in the Platinum division and he won his group with 17 points, meaning now he's playing in Master. The season before he also played in Platinum, finished second with 15 points. The last International Championship season didn't go very well for him, and also you saw parts of that season because he was playing in my group, but at the end got relegated. And in the World Championship, currently still ongoing, he managed to make it to stage 5, so had the same result as I did. And now, then we have Arne, who you have just very recently seen in the game that I showed from the Royal League. He in the last season played already in the Master Division, finished at the second position with 17 points, so a solid result, but it was not enough at the end to move to Grandmaster. In the season before in Intermezzo, he played in the Platinum Division, where he finished with 17 points as well, but won his group and then, of course, got promoted to the Master Division. His last International Championship season went very well for him. He played in the Master Division in the other Master group where I was not playing, and he managed to win that group with a very solid amount of 30 points. So he will now be, I think, for the first time playing in the Grandmaster Division in the next season of the International Championship, and has generally a good form. International Championship season went very well, and also the current Royal League season, despite him losing against me, still went very well for him so far. And in the World Championship of this year, he also, same as me and Danny Boy, made it to stage 5. Then we have Bright Future, who is, I think, will now be covered for the first time on this channel, if I'm not forgetting something. He is a player who is also playing already for a while, but I saw him mostly rather in the Platinum Division or maybe in the Gold Division, and it could be that this season is actually the first season for him playing in a Master Division. I'm not totally certain because at this point we have tons of seasons of both International and Intermezzo Championship, but I think it might actually be his first season in the Master Division. And in the last season of the Intermezzo Championship, he won his Platinum group with a very impressive amount of 24 points. With that, moved on to Master. And the season before that, he was actually still playing in Gold, managed to win his group. So he has now done two promotions in a row in the Intermezzo Championship season. Let's see if we can maybe make a hat-trick out of that. In the last International Championship season, he played in the Gold Division, finished at the third position in his group with 18 points, and in the current World Championship, he, same as all the other opponents and myself so far, made it up to stage 5. And then the last opponent that we have in my group, you probably know very well. It's of course Payada, who plays the game already for a very long time, and of course also is organizing some big tournaments already for a very long time. For as far as I'm playing through the ages, he's the tournament organizer of the Transcontinental Ladder, the Intermezzo Championship, the International Championship, and also the World Championships that has happened so far. And yeah, he is really doing some very great effort, and just it's very great that he is organizing those tournaments and putting all the work in. So a big thanks to him. And but he is not only organizing tournaments, he is also playing on quite a high level. And in the last Intermezzo Championship season, he played in the Master Division, finished third with 12 points. In the season before that, he also played in the Master Division, finished at the second position with actually 20 points, which is quite a bit. And so has been playing relatively consistently in Master and Intermezzo over the last seasons, and in the International Championship he in the last season played in the Platinum Division, finished at the second position with 22 points. It was actually a three-way tie from first to third position, and sadly the tiebreaker didn't go in his favor, so that he didn't finish first, but still a solid result. And he is actually the player who got the furthest in the current World Championship, because he is the only one who actually made it to stage 6. Yeah, and with that you have a short overview over the last tournament results of my opponents, and now we will also take a quick look at their clicker rating. There was actually just recently an update to the rating, which wasn't the best update for me, with my not so great last International Championship season, and also the very consistent losses or not so great results in the sodium ladder. My rating and my position in the rating has been going down. At least I'm still in the top 20, but I ideally want to make it back to the top 10 as quickly as possible. But I'm still the highest rated player out of the group, but it's quite close. Payada is in the 21st position, only 2 conservative rating points behind me, and Arne is now, after some strong performances, the last International Championship season is already represented here in the rating. He's in the 22nd position, so also now among definitely the top players, also according to the rating. Then Danny Boy and Bright Future are a little bit more behind. Danny Boy at the 48th position and Bright Future at the 62nd position of the rating, but still all are in the top 100 and all have are some very, very solid player. However, as the Intermezzo Championship season is of course a pure 3-player tournament, we can also maybe take a quick look at the 3-player ratings. And there we can see that things are looking a bit better for me than in the overall rating. I think my drop in the overall rating is mainly to my recently very bad 4-player performance, because in the 2-player rating, as we can quickly take a look, I'm actually still on the first position, but in the 4-player rating, I am now at the 26th position. But for 3-player games, I still have shown some relatively strong results, meaning I'm at the 4th position of the rating. Payada is a bit better in 3-player games as well. Arne a bit weaker. Danny Boy and Bright Future both positioned a bit better. So here again we can see some very strong 3-player players. Alright, with that we have started the short introduction at the beginning of the new season, and now we will start by taking a look at the first game, which will be a game against Danny Boy and Arne. So now without further ado, let's take a look at that game. In this game I'm playing in the 2nd position, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. We can see that there are some lab leaders in H3, we have Sid Meier, Bill Gates, also Einstein, there's also spaceflight and internet. But we also have some theater synergy, there is Marlene Dietrich, Fleming, and the Hollywood, also again the internet. We have Gandhi, Churchill, but no Manhattan Project for the military. In H2 we have some culture leaders as well, with Anthony Gaudi, Darwin, and Shakespeare. We have Maria Theresa, but no ocean liner service. We have James Cook and the Suez Canal, so definitely some colonization payoff being there. And then also 2 military action leaders with Robespierre and Catherine. In H1 we have both Universitas and Silk Road, both St. Peter's Basilica and Forbidden City, so they're both Happy Face, Lucian Wonders, and also Demichi Castle is there. We have 1 military action leader with Jan Žižka, Genghis Khan, Nostradamus can help with the strength as well. Columbus, Isabella, Eleanor can all be nice in a colonization game, and then we have Gutenberg for a little bit of synergy with labs and printing presses. Alright, Danny Boy is in the 1st position, and he just starts by taking the Acropolis, which I guess is a fine pick. He can probably take one of those leaders that are coming down the row. Maybe not the greatest, maybe there's also a chance he could get Confucius for 2 civil actions at the next turn. Maybe he could have also thought about Sun Tzu. I do think there's some synergy in there. There's some colonization payoff, some interesting leaders in H1 with Žižka, Genghis Khan, and Columbus. And then maybe he could have had a chance to still potentially, no, not the Acropolis, but maybe take one of those wonders. Maybe there's a chance that pyramids and Rome roads are taken away. Maybe if those are still available, those could, especially the Rome roads, still stay on 2 civil actions. So at the end it might be somewhat similar, and at the end it just goes for the Acropolis, which I think can be a very solid wonder in 3-player games. And we will actually also see later in the game that he had a special idea in mind when taking that wonder, but we can reveal that later on. Now it is my turn, I am playing in the second position. And maybe at some point during my Through the Ages career I would have just grabbed the pyramids here, with the hopes of getting Confucius at the next turn, or if not maybe Ashoka, I then would have a very strong economical setup. I think if I take the pyramids it could definitely be that Arne just goes for Sun Tzu and those 2 yellow cards, which I think would be quite a strong start for him. However, instead of just picking the pyramids and having that very strong wonder available, I in this game decided to actually go for Rich Land and Sun Tzu, interestingly. And as I said already on Danny Boy's turn, there is some synergy for Sun Tzu in the game, a colonization payoff, Shishka, Genghis Khan and Columbus. I can take him together with the yellow card, and while I might not get the pyramids, because those might now very likely be taken by Arne, Danny Boy has already committed to a wonder, so I will be getting the Rome roads, which are not that much weaker than the pyramids, and I get the rich land. I think Sun Tzu can be a very fine leader here, and so at the end I went with Sun Tzu, and especially to getting him together with the rich land is giving him quite a strong pick here. Now Arne is taking the pyramids, is taking the urban growth. I think that seems like a very solid pick. Confucius will stay on 2 civil actions. Let's see if Danny Boy is willing to pay an additional civil action for him, or if he is going for one of the leaders that are available for 1 civil action, and he is willing to pay that additional civil action. And I think that was something that I was somewhat happy to see. I think it definitely can be the right decision for himself, especially with a bit of hate drafting involved, but especially because of that I was happy to see it, because Arne will not get Confucius for 1 civil action and has to work with Ashoka, Cleo or Alex, which all can be fine, but I think are not as strong as Confucius. Then now it is my turn, the Rome roads are available for me, but also the Colosseum. I mean, the additional military action, the happy phase, especially if I go for a military heavy game, certainly can be very interesting together with Sun Tzu, but at the end I still just prefer the economical value of the Rome roads. The yellow token is also somewhat helpful for getting more population, so that's maybe a similar job than the happy phase of the Colosseum, and it will just produce me a lot of resources and science and at the end culture over the game. So I just went for a normal turn with going for Sun Tzu, building my 3rd mine, increasing my population and taking the Rome roads. Then it's Arne's turn. I was interested to see, also I get some draws here, the first tactic already, which can be interesting. 2 colonies in the Dark Ages, no strength event. I was now interested to see what leader Arne will go for. Cleo could be a bit tricky, as he might not be able to use her every turn. Ashoka could be fine, and with having already a yellow card in hand, interestingly though, he will go for Alex here, which I'm not sure if I would do it. However, one reason why he might be willing to go for him here is that actually Isabella is coming down the row, and maybe he thinks that there could be a decent chance that he will just be able to go for Isabella at the next turn, replace Alex immediately, play with an additional yellow token, and have Isabella, who with this colonization payoff in the game could turn out to be quite a strong leader, and the additional resource production that early is certainly not bad. So I think with that Alex could definitely work out quite well potentially. Even though just going for Ashoka I think could have also been a very fine choice. Danny Boy seeds and opens the development of planning. The options for that are development of religion, agriculture and trade routes. Danny Boy didn't have a free population, meaning he chooses the development of trade routes. He goes for the 2nd lab and then increases population again, just uses the civil actions effectively, and interestingly he is taking Genghis Khan here, which is an interesting pick, but also I think a very wise one, because as you can see the first copy of Knights is coming down the row. He could have maybe somehow taken it for 3, but I think that would have been very costly. And now that he doesn't take it, it will be available for 2 civil actions for myself. With having Sun Tzu, with there being leaders like Shishka in the game, I think he has to expect that I will take it and that I might upgrade a tactic with Knights then. And then he is playing behind Arne, meaning Arne might have the better chance for the 2nd copy of Knights. But with having Genghis Khan, Danny Boy just makes sure that even if he misses out on Knights, he can copy any tactic that I will upgrade, and so that could just turn out to be a very important safety pick for him. Now it is my turn. I have some events that I can choose from. I have 2 colonies in hand. And I mean, I'm playing Sun Tzu, I will have a lot of draws, so I can definitely think about putting some colonies in there. However, I can't keep that many cards in hand, and Arne, I thought, could maybe just go for Isabella here. I thought even about if maybe I could go for seeding those two colonies and just take Isabella maybe in hand, or maybe elect her even immediately. But I have now this first copy of Knights. There is a copy of Jan Žižka. If Arne indeed goes for Isabella, then I'm even guaranteed to get Jan Žižka, and so I didn't want to commit to Isabella here. And then with maybe Arne going for Isabella, I didn't wanted to push any colonies. Instead, I seeded the Dark Ages. If I go for Knights, then maybe at least I will be able to spend some science. I have the knowledge about it. Danny Boy is producing some additional science has maybe the potential to lose some. So at the end, I was willing to push that event into the deck. The development revealed is the development of settlement. I take the development of religion from the development of planning. I was willing to take those Knights with Žižka being the game, me already having a Knights tactic that can just turn out to be extremely strong. And then for my last two civil actions, I think it's a bit of a question of whether I want to build a second lab to get more science production immediately, and then I need to spend my last civil action somehow, or if I want to play it more civil action effectively, I can just build 2 stages of the Rome roads. And if I want to build a lab, then I could, of course, if I would have seeded a colony, maybe I could have taken Isabella. I could take Bread and Circuses, but I think it's not really a good tech for me here, because there's no Pierre in the game. There is Anthony Gaudi, but there's no Pierre, and I have a free religion already, so I don't really want to have the Bread and Circuses here, and those yellow cards are also not really that great, and with those options not really being that great for me, I at the end decided to just build 2 steps of the Rome roads, use my civil actions more effectively, even when it comes at a cost of delaying my science production for 1 more turn. I keep the developed territory and the phalanx tactic. I have no even the medieval army tactic, so Jan Žižka could really have some very big potential for me here. Now it's Arne's turn. He is using Alex immediately, builds the second lab, takes Isabella, elects Isabella, so he is now getting a new H1 leader very quickly, which is always strong with Alex. It's still somewhat risky though, because Danny Boy has Genghis Khan, I have Sun Tzu, I am now guaranteed to go for Jan Žižka if I would like to, so not leaving himself open for Nostradamus or Žižka could potentially backfire, but of course until then he can produce some resources, and he is also having the military threat in mind, because with his last civil action he will now take the warfare, which could potentially be very important for him to make him a bit safer from potential military pushes. Now it's Danny Boy's turn. He seeds with having Confucius. The development of politics is revealed. He will take the code of laws, goes up to 5 civil actions. Also, by the way, the development of politics gave me 3 more events here. And then he gets out of corruption by building a step of the Acropolis, takes the breakthrough, and that looks like a very solid turn. Now it's my turn. I kind of still want to move the deck forward. I could think about pushing developed territory, but now Arne has of course Isabella, so I didn't really like it. I could push the call to arms already. However, there's then only 1 development left. Danny Boy will seed for certain. There's a chance that Arne might want to seed. I just didn't feel too comfortable pushing the call to arms into the deck, and so instead I seeded a rebellion. With the event deck moving that quickly, I thought that could just turn out to be a safe event for me, while Danny Boy has missed out on the free religion, and with that there's certainly a chance that he could get hit by the rebellion here, so I seeded that into the deck. The development of crafts are revealed, which allow me now to not only finish the Rome roads, but also build a second lab, so this turn I will still be getting some economy up and running. At the next turn, I then probably want to start building some military, developing those knights, so that I spend some science for the Dark Ages. Also, ideally, I would like to not increase my population here, so that I have the potential to increase my population 2 times at the next turn, and I then thought about what card I might want to take for 1 civil action to use my last civil action, and I think it's a decision here between irrigation and Ridgeland. Irrigation can be very nice to have in a potential military heavy game, allows me to go for more population. Maybe it could be a fine pick here. At the end I went with the Ridgeland, so just having that in hand and maybe allowing myself to go for some quicker upgrades in the future. For the irrigation I probably wouldn't go in the near future, probably I will go for knights first, and then it will be a bit late. Maybe there's then the second copy around, and so I just wanted to have the Ridgeland, and with that I'm not going into consumption. assumption, I can increase my population 2 times at the next turn, and then maybe start building at least 1 knight, potentially revealing the tactic. Actually, I think I will already reveal the tactic this turn, which is of course giving a sign to my opponents, but I was thinking maybe it could be fine, because as you can see, the last copy of knights is actually in the row, but for Arne to take it for 3 civil actions would be extremely costly for him. So I thought he might not want to take it anyway, but maybe with revealing the tactic he could be inclined to take it for very expensive, maybe corruption or maybe having to commit to a warrior. Maybe he would be willing to take it, but it would at least be extremely costly for him. I just also wanted to be able to keep more cards in hand, and with that I decided to reveal the tactic already. I then needed to decide what cards do I want to keep in hand. I wanted to keep the call to arms. Having a strength event to seed could be nice, and I'm not sure if I did the right decision here, because then I kept the colonization card, but I had also 2 aggressions in hand. Of course, I don't know when Jan Žižka will be available, but with him and maybe just being able to build 3 knights not that far off in the future, I could have some huge strength potential, while I will now get some new draws with Sun Tzu. 2 aggressions I have already discarded now, so maybe instead of the colonization card, I maybe should have just kept an aggression here, because it could be awkward if I then go for very big strength numbers with Jan Žižka, but don't have an aggression to pull off, and that at this point I think could end up being more relevant than the 1 colonization card, so I think I might have made a mistake here with my discard. I draw some new cards, actually some more strength events and also another colonization card. Maybe if there is a colony seeded by one of my opponents, I could now have a chance to win it. Arne seeds, meaning the event deck will flip now already. And the development of science was revealed. He will finish the pyramids, and that means he is not willing to take the knights here for 3. Danny Boy has Genghis Khan, so he doesn't necessarily need the knights, but of course he could still decide to go for a denial here. But taking knights for 3, the turn would look probably like taking knights, increasing population, building a warrior, would also be extremely expensive. So, it's a tough decision for Arne. He goes for the more economical play, but that could potentially come at the cost of his military potential that he can threaten, depending on whether Danny Boy will now deny the knights or not. Arne for now is revealing the Legion tactic, showing that he has another tactic to work with, maybe making it a little bit less likely that Danny Boy is willing to deny the knights. Danny Boy first of all seeds. The Dark Ages are revealed, which I was not too happy about, because at my next turn I will then develop the knights, and there could have been, for example, also Rebellion that could have been revealed. As long as Danny Boy is still an unhappy worker, but at least all the players lose a somewhat similar amount of science, so it's a somewhat neutral event. Danny Boy this turn will finish the Acropolis, takes the knights, takes the patriotism, elects Genghis Khan, takes the rich land, reveals his own medieval army tactic, builds a warrior, with that goes up to 5 strength, and of course maybe the important thing during his turn for how the game is continuing, he is going for the knight's denial. This copy of Swordsman will be discarded, meaning there's only 1 copy of Swordsman left for Arne, which could potentially leave him in a vulnerable position. However, it might also depend on the timing of Jan Žižka. For now he isn't in the row. If he is late, then Arne still has some time to maybe profit from his economy and build up some strength over the next turns. Danny Boy has now the strength lead, is starting to produce some culture. I am not the strongest, but also not the weakest. Reds could be a very bad event, but both opponents have some food saved up, so I thought it's maybe not that likely, and I just wanted to start pushing those strength events in there, because as you can see actually, Jan Žižka will appear on the row now. I won't take him this turn, but I can plan on getting him at the next turn, and with that I wanted to push those strength events, and also it could be nice to open the Rebellion as long as Danny Boy still has an unhappy worker. The event revealed, though, are the new deposits, which at least gives me 1 more resource than Danny Boy. I will then increase my population 2 times. Building 1 knight gets me out of corruption. I have 1 civil action left, and what I want to do with it was very clear for me here. I want to take that copy of reserves, because that will allow me, if I get Jan Žižka at the next turn, which is guaranteed. Arne can't make him discarded on Danny's boy's turn, so at the next turn I will be able to get him for 1 civil action, and then I will be able to play the reserves for food, increase my population, and go up to a lot of strength. So I have some huge strength potential here, and now we can see maybe I should have kept one of those aggressions, because I will now soon have that much strength that it will be very difficult for Arne and maybe also for Danny Boy to defend, but now I might not have an aggression to profit from that, so that could be a mistake that might get punished here. I will actually already build another knight. I could also not do it and get more draws, but I just wanted to get strongest and maybe already put a bit of pressure on my opponents. I actually discarded both colonization cards, as I don't have any knowledge about colonies, and I just wanted to have events to push, and I draw even more events to push, also the Reign of Terror, which could be a nice event, but no aggression. Now it's Arne's turn. He will increase his population, he will increase his population again, he develops the warfare, builds 2 warriors, is now at 6 strength, not the weakest any longer, and then he starts building on the Silk Road. But yeah, especially if the swordsmen are late, then he can't really go for a lot more, and that might not be enough to defend against potential aggressions from Jan Žižka. For now, I don't have any aggressions though, and he might just get away with it. Danny Boy, it's now his turn, and he won't see it. Instead, he goes for the St. Peter's Basilica and will just finish it. So, an interesting turn. Allows him to get out of corruption, which maybe would have otherwise been potentially a bit difficult, even though he could have increased his population, maybe developed the knights, increased his strength. Like this, he is actually staying the weakest, which costs him some culture from Genghis Khan. Could potentially get punished if there are some strength events coming. But an event that is actually in there is the rebellion, and from that event he is from now on safe, and also generally he will now have more population to work with, or more happy population to work with, which could over the next turn be quite relevant on how much strength he can threaten. So it will help him with the military eventually, and for now nicely enables him to get out of corruption. Now it's my turn. I'm the strongest. Here I mainly decided between Call to Arms and Reign of Terror. And I thought I want to see the Reign of Terror, because both of my opponents have 5 civil actions, and maybe losing some civil actions could be fine for them, while if one of them loses a population, it could make it even harder for them to stay competitive in the military, or maybe they have to lose something out of their economy. So I thought the Reign of Terror is the event of my choice here. I seed it into the deck. The Knowledge of the Ancients is revealed, which gives me the least value, but some science is still quite welcome for me in this position, and then I think this turn is relatively straightforward. Even though not completely, I will go for Jan Žižka. I mean, it's very straightforward, but there's one line that maybe could be considered. I will go for Jan Žižka here, I will elect him, I'm now at 11 strength. And I think there are 2 main options here. I could just play the reserves now for food, increase my population, build another knight, and then maybe just take that copy of reserves with my last civil action, because with the food of that reserves I also make sure to not have an uprising issue when the age ends. And then I will be at 16 strength. I'm extremely threatening, but sadly without an aggression, so that could really bite me here. But with having no aggression in hand, it could actually also be a very solid line of taking the Universitas and building a step to get out of corruption. The next turn I might then even be able to finish it. I will then not be as threatening. But I have the Universitas soon, which will be a very big boost to my economy. I can get some science production without having to invest some science. But at the end I decided to go for the more aggressive line, maybe forcing some awkward responses out of my opponents, and also I will at least still have 2 draws at the end of my turn, so there is certainly a chance that I actually might get an aggression, and while I can't get the science production from the Universitas then, there are 2 copies of Alchemy coming down the row. I was hoping that maybe the second one could still be available for me at the next turn, and that I could use that copy to get some science production going, or if the alchemy is not available, the iron might still be. So I thought I might still have a shot at getting some economy going. Nonetheless, with having no aggression in hand, and with 11 strength be enough for now to be the strongest for the events, I do think going for Universitas could definitely be considered. However, then if I go for new population at some point and put it into knights, it could turn out to be an unhappy one at some point. I could then maybe go for theology, but with taking the reserves now, I also will make sure to not have an uprising issue, even though when I already now build an additional knight and actually go up to 16 strength, which makes me extremely threatening. Now I have 2 draws. I have some strength events that I can push and maybe open, but of course an aggression would be really great here, so I was hoping that maybe Vlada's kind with me and I don't get punished for my probably mistake of discarding an aggression earlier on. And I do get lucky here. I actually draw the Enslave, which can be quite a powerful aggression, costing one of my opponents a population. I gain 2 food, 2 resources, could allow me to increase my population again, so I was very happy about the draw. Arne seeds, the event revealed is the rebellion. Danny Boy has fixed his happy faces now, so no one loses any civil actions. Arne is going for the alchemy. He can't really do anything for the military. He can maybe hope that a swordsman won't be denied, but it's already soon age 2. Maybe he needs to hope then for rifleman. I mean, don't think he can take a swordsman for 3 here, but yeah, he can't really increase the strength, and with that I have a guaranteed aggression against him. He also takes the cultural heritage then. Now it's Danny Boy's turn. He offers the open borders agreement to Arne, helping both of them maybe a little bit of defending against me. Danny Boy is building a religion, interestingly, gets even more happy faces. That could be an indicator of maybe there being an immigration coming soon, or maybe Danny Boy just wants to have the happy face already. Of course, it also just saves him a science for the monarchy, so that might also be already the reason. However, he's not really investing that much into the military, is playing the patriotism now, going for an additional warrior, putting him at least at 6 strength, but he could have gone for maybe a little bit more strength, so and now he is same as Arne. At the moment it looks like he could have a theoretical chance of defending, but it's only because he played the patriotism. He has only 4 military actions actually, so even with a full defense card hand he could not defend against me. Then it's my turn and I can go for the Enslave, which is very strong. I was extremely happy about having that. Sadly I will have corruption when I play it, so I thought about if maybe I shouldn't play it, but still I make it that the opponent loses in population. At least I will still get the 2 food, even if the resources will be lost. The question now, of course, being with both of my opponents being vulnerable to an aggression, and I know for certain that they can't defend, which will be the player that I choose as a target. Both players actually have no free population, so losing the population from the Enslave will be annoying to them. And at the end, the answer to the question was I found in their yellow bank. Because when we take a look at Danny Boy's yellow bank, he will lose now 2 yellow tokens. He has exactly 3 food saved up. Meaning if he doesn't get hit by an aggression, he will just lose the 2 yellows, and after that he might just be stuck on 3 food. And he can't increase his population. However, if he now loses a population, then of course he has to destroy something, and that's bad, but maybe he can lose a warrior and rebuild it, or lose something else and then build an additional unit or something, and then out of the sudden he's in that area of the yellow bank again, meaning he can actually regain the population immediately, because then increasing his population costs only 3 and not 4 food. He has just enough food to increase his population then. So I felt like it's of course still bad for him, but with that maybe not as bad, and making it that he's still stuck on 3 food could be a bit annoying for him. He could maybe just go for irrigation then anyway and get a new population out soon. But with that, at the end I went against Arne, because Arne has here an additional yellow token thanks to Alex. So Alex now being maybe the reason why I target him. And he will also have to destroy something, but for him he would be able to go for another population anyway. I mean, that population would actually be unhappy, but there's still a chance. Actually not, the theology is taken. So yeah, that at the end was the reason for me. But of course, both players are very similarly vulnerable, or the aggression does similar damage. But with that and the potential of Danny Boy being stuck at 3 food, I choose Arne as an aggression target. He will lose a population, I gain 2 resources and 2 food. And this turn I kind of wanted to go for the alchemy, setting up some science production. There's also the Code of Laws, but then I'm very low in science, so I didn't want to go for that. And instead, I actually will just go for 2 alchemy upgrades. I could go for 1 upgrade, increase my population, build a unit to get out of corruption, but then at the next turn I will immediately have uprising issues, might have to disband the unit again immediately. And with that, I just went for 2 alchemy upgrades here, going up to 4 science production. Soon I will even be at 5 when the Rome roads will switch to science production, hopefully allowing me to, not that far in the future, be able to go for an H2 government form. And I will have corruption, but at least I got the 2 food from the enslaved, which will actually make sure that I can increase my population without having to play the reserves for food. That's the end of my turn. I will get 1 draw in. And I actually get very lucky here. I don't get punished at all for discarding those aggressions early on. I have now a blunder, and if my opponents stay vulnerable, I can hit one of my opponents with the blunder, which is definitely quite lucky. Arne seeds, and there's indeed the immigration, so it was not only the science discount for the Acropolis, but probably also that immigration that let Danny Boy build this religion. And actually Danny Boy did a video on hand reading and comparing poker skills to through the ages skills, and there he had some similar examples of how you can, by some actions, read what events might have been seeded or what cards the opponent might have in hand. And here we maybe could do some reading with his last move and with building that religion. Now it's Arne's turn. He will go for the swordsman, develops them, can increase his population. He lost a warrior to the enslave, is now at 7 strength, which is still not enough to threaten a defense. He then plays the cultural heritage. Potentially you could think about going for 2 upgrades with being at 9 strength. He then at least would threaten to be safe from an aggression, but he might still be the target of one, and Danny Boy might get stronger by quite a bit as well, especially now with getting an additional population from the immigration. And with that, maybe Arne wasn't willing to go for more upgrades here. Instead, maybe he rather wanted to leave himself with enough resource to go for some iron upgrades. Now H2 starts. Danny Boy will go for the knights, builds 1 knight, could have also just gone for another warrior, but with going for those knights, he is already preparing a little bit for the transitioning out of Genghis Khan. With just being stuck on warriors, that could end up being problematic. Of course, he could just build a warrior, maybe then he could already, with the rich land, go for an iron upgrade this turn, so I think it's certainly something to consider for him, but later on he might be thankful to not have too heavily leaned onto warriors. He then takes the irrigation, develops the irrigation, so instead of going for an iron upgrade, he goes for an upgrade to irrigation. And as I said, he was stuck at 3 food, but now of course if he goes for the irrigation first, he can increase his population at the next turn again, and potentially get even more strength going if he thinks he needs it, and then he takes the breakthrough, which makes sense. Rich land of course also interesting, but he's quite low in science, so I think the breakthrough might be more important for him. And then he actually copies the medieval army tactic, which puts him now at 12 strength, so he copied the upgraded medieval army tactic, was already on a medieval army tactic before. Now it's my turn. Arne is still vulnerable to an aggression, and I will again go for an aggression, the blunder, but again it will actually cause corruption for me, because without playing it, as you can see, I can increase my population. It's just enough to get out of corruption. So again, I thought about if I maybe just want to see it, potentially open some strength events, but at the end it's still doing a lot of damage to one opponent, and I at least still get 1 value basically out of it, and so I was willing to play that blunder here before maybe Arne increases his strength again, gets some H2 draws, and then I might not be able to know for certain any longer that he is vulnerable to an aggression, so I will go for that. I have exactly enough food to increase my population, so I'm just taking 3 resources and don't take the 1 food that Arne is having. I still will increase my population, which also fixes a potential uprising issue that I could have had. Then I have 3 civil actions. I could build a religion to get out of corruption, but it would be somewhat awkward. I thought about it, but I didn't really want to do it. I could just grab the selective breeding for 3, knowing that I have a food solution for certain, but Danny Boy now has committed to irrigation, so I didn't feel the need of having to grab that selective breeding for that expensive. And at the end, I actually just wanted to have something useful to invest into, and went for the Forbidden City here. Because the Forbidden City will make sure that I will be on 5 civil actions very soon, so even when the government forms are late, I'm still not stuck on 4 civil actions for longer. And with the ignored unhappy workers ability, I also know that that will be a happy population soon, which gives me even more strength potential. Can build another unit. Who knows, if I draw a war and make that population happy at some point, I could even destroy something, maybe potentially the religion even, as then those two will be covered, and I could go for another army with Janshishka. So I felt also the ignored unhappy workers, that ability might be very useful. So I take the Forbidden City here. Now I have 1 civil action left, and here it was a decision for me between just building a step, being civil action efficient, making it that I have more civil actions at the next turn, or taking the masonry and then planning to finish the Forbidden City maybe with the masonry. And it was a close call, but at the end I went with building a step, because both of my, or not both, Danny Boy is on Monarch, he was playing in front of me. With that, maybe there's a decent chance that a government form could be in a row. Of course, I'm missing 1 science to go for Conman, but there could be a Republic. And maybe if there's a Republic, I don't want to invest into Masonry anyway. And if there's a Republic, it also could make a difference between being able to finish Forbidden City after developing the Republic or not, if I build that step or not. Generally, if I want to go for a government form, coal, selective breeding, that will cost a lot of science, and also there are 2 copies of architecture, and maybe that could potentially be the even stronger technology. One of those could also be in the row at my next turn. So it's a close call. The masonry could still do a lot of work, but I'm not certain at this point if I will go for Third Wonder. Railroad with coal could be very interesting. So it was a somewhat close call for me, but at the end I just rather went with building the step here. Then I draw 2 cards. No aggressions and no wars, but that maybe would have been a bit too much after those lucky aggressions draws in H1. Still, there are some strength events in the deck I can push, so that's still nice for me. I have corruption, which is not ideal, but at the next turn, with having taken that one, at least I have a way to fix that. And for Arne, it's not really getting any better. He seeds, which is of course a risk, but maybe he has to take some risks already at this point. Maybe there would be a helpful event that he could open. But he gets punished here, the uncertain borders are revealed. I actually gain an additional yellow token, and he will lose one, and losing that one will be extremely painful for him, because that will cause an uprising issue immediately. And as you can see, he is actually now willing to disband a warrior in order to cover that uprising, is now very low in strength, very vulnerable at this point, is probably just hoping that there are no more aggressions coming. And yeah, now things are definitely not looking great. He's going for 1 iron upgrade now, takes the rich land, can go for another iron upgrade for 3 at the next turn with the Silk Road bonus, and then takes the engineering genius and the bread and circuses. Maybe can also think about, when he goes for another upgrade for 3 at the next turn, disbanding a mine, building an additional swordsman to at least get a little bit of strength back. But at the moment, it really looks quite like a very dangerous situation for him, and he was unlucky with getting hit by that much stuff, but from now on he might need some luck in order to come back into the game, because he is now just very vulnerable to aggressions and strength events. And he doesn't catch a break here. Danny Boy has the other copy of Plunder, is able to steal 3 resources from Arne, which won't allow him to finish the Silk Road, for example, at the next one. Actually, I think he could do it with the Engineering Genius, but he might want to build up some military again. So, no. And again, quite bad for Arne. And at that point, I was a bit worried, because I thought those 3 resources might be quite a big push for Danny Boy. Could even allow him to now go for a scientific method upgrade. It could allow him to go for 2 instead of 1 iron upgrade. So I think those resources are really giving him a nice jump start. So I of course would have preferred it if he wouldn't had that aggression, but I had already 2 of them, so it's only fair that he gets some share of plundering Arne's civilization as well. He makes the decision here to actually start with going for iron upgrades, which I'm not totally certain of if I would have done the same. Maybe I would have started with the scientific method, potentially leaving himself open to coal, but on the other hand, he has his government form already. Those upgrades are costly, so I do think it's also fine to go for iron upgrades in 2 turns. He can maybe then go for 2 upgrades to scientific method immediately. So I think both variations are fine here, but I was thinking if maybe I would be willing here to go for the scientific method first. He is taking the reserves as well. So you can see there are actually 2 copies of architecture coming down the row. With that, when I saw them coming down the row, thought that instead of the masonry, I might now be willing to go for the architecture. However, at my turn, as you can see, there's actually also a copy of Republic on the row, which I was very happy to see. First of all, at my turn, I seeded the call to arms into the deck. I will be able to go for that Republic. Dark Ages is out. Rebellion is out, so there's nothing really that can disrupt me from going for that, and with having the Republic, even if I should get hit by Call to Arms, it might not be too bad for me. The Reign of Terror is revealed, so the strength events are on top. Arne is suffering from them, will now lose another population. At least that maybe doesn't cause some immediate problems, because that one is unhappy anyway, but of course he could have built a Bread and Circuses for more strength at some point. And then at my turn I will go for the Republic, finish the Forbidden City and take the selective breeding. For a moment I thought about if maybe I could still go for the architecture, maybe waiting for a government form for later, maybe hoping that Arne won't go for the Republic, but he very well might go for the Republic. And as said earlier when talking about the masonry, while I have some decent amount of science and science production, as you can see after going for the Republic, I'm at 0 + 5. I want to get into selective breedings, into coal, so I thought the architecture might just a bit too much for me here. And I also have already upgraded some urban buildings, so instead I just went for the Republic. Thanks to building that step, I can now finish the Forbidden City, get out of corruption, go even up to 8 civil actions. That is very strong. I was very happy about my position now, and with the 1 civil action, I said I went for the selective breeding, as otherwise there would be the danger of missing out on the second one. Of course it could be nice, maybe still taking architecture, maybe taking something like patriotism, but at the end I just wanted to make sure to have selective breeding in my hand here. Decided to get rid of the iconoclasm here. It can of course be an event that is nice to keep in hand, but I rather wanted to keep the strength events here, and I draw another strength event, a war and an aggression, so there are some options again at the next turn to deploy some of those things. Arne will go for the architecture, takes the cannons in hand, goes for an upgrade to iron for 3. But because of the blunder of Danny Boy, he has only 2 resources, meaning he can't really do a lot more than just build a warrior, be it 7 strength, which at least maybe makes him safe from the aggression from Danny Boy. He is now at least also threatening to be safe, or could be safe from the aggression from me, with having some H2 draws, so at least he has a chance to defend, and with that I and Danny Boy might also think about if we are willing to deploy an aggression, or maybe rather just want to push. However, Danny Boy has actually a war here available, war over territory, and is deciding to go for that. Plays the reserves 3 for food, has just enough food to increase his population, builds a knight, builds a warrior, is now at 18 strength with Genghis Khan, is even the strongest now, takes the frugality, the opera, the wave, and the architecture. Now it is my turn, and now I came to the conclusion here that I have to join Danny Boy in the wars, which is of course very unfortunate for Arne. But I think I just have to increase the chances here that Arne might just resign, because if I just do something different, then maybe Arne could play on, and then Danny Boy would get a lot of value out of that war. And now if I join Danny Boy in the war, either Arne resigns, we are just both getting 7 culture, or he doesn't resign, and then we both are getting quite a lot of value from what we are stealing from him. So I think I just have to join Danny Boy here, but now of course it's looking very dim for Arne, and I thought he potentially could just resign during his turn. Of course in H2 you can always hope for something, but I think it's looking very tough for him now. At my turn, as you can see, I will actually go for the railroad, which, together with the coal that I will be taking, I think has a lot of potential. I don't plan on finishing it soon, but rather maybe at the beginning of H3 or something. Then I think the 5 strength will be relevant, and it will just allow me to have some strong production during H3. I thought about not taking the coal, there's not a copy coming, and yeah, it could just be fine to wait. But still, there's a chance that Arne might resign, there's a chance that the coal could be discarded, maybe Danny Boy could deny the second copy. Actually, if Arne resigns, I think the coal just won't be discarded, but yeah, it could just be nice knowing for certain that I can go for the coal at the next turn. The alternatives that I can take are also not that great, because in addition to the coal, I made a decision to go for the cannons here, which is a bit expensive, but Arne has taken the other copy, meaning with that I can make sure that I have the cannons available instead of Danny Boy, which at the end was worth it for me to spend 3 civil actions. I thought about the breakthrough, but I have some decent science production with that. Took the cannons, and if I wouldn't have taken the coal, I mean, I could have maybe taken organized religion as a happy face solution and journalism, potentially for Anthony Gaudi, and to have a payoff when I maybe at some point have some good production going. Of course, I could have not gone for the railroad, but I do think that has just a lot of potential here, railroad into coal. So I wanted to have that available, and also then I might have just taken another card like breakthrough for 3 civil actions. I just rather wanted to spend it on having a wonder lying around. And at the end, that was the turn that I went for. Now, of course, I was interested to see if Arne will now actually resign or if he plans on playing on. I draw actually a colonization card here. And Arne at this point resigns. And yeah, I think it's really looking... There's not really hope left for him. I mean, always there can be happen some things when you are resigning in H2, some wars between me and Danny Boy, but even then I think it's not looking that great. Danny Boy and I are running away with the culture. We both have some decent economical setup, and so that Arne doesn't really have an advantage in the economy, and he's in a position where he just doesn't have a clear plan on how he wants to follow up with the strength in the next few turns, and then he might just get hit by more stuff. And here he decides to resign, which I think is probably the correct call, meaning that both Danny Boy and I are now gaining 7 culture out of that war that we declared against him. Now it is Danny Boy's turn, he cedes, and actually I get hit by a strength event myself. Now the border conflict is in the deck, and yeah, with Arne gone, out of the sudden I'm the weakest, and the sudden change of things here, out of the sudden I'm on the losing side of one of those strength events, while Danny Boy gets a boost for his resources. He will now go for Anthony Gaudi for 3 civil actions, interestingly, which seems maybe a little bit weird at first, but of course we have to remember that the game basically only now turned into a 2-player game, and with that we also maybe have the 2-player dynamics now. And now we can also see that Danny Boy at the beginning of the game actually went for a very clever move, because as you might remember, he took that Acropolis as a first pick, and I think maybe at that point he had already planned it out, or maybe thought about that in this game there will be a resign happening early on, and now he's actually playing a 2-player game with having the Acropolis and a culture leader now. Actually the only culture leader left, I guess there's Shakespeare, but we are both not really set up for him. But yeah, that could give him some important advantages now in the rest of the game potentially. He is going for Gaudi, saving 1 science on the scientific method, just getting some science production going. Has the opera to get some culture production going together with the St. Peter's Basilica. He has then enough happy faces, has the architecture, so I think he might not have as much economical potential as I have, with having more civil actions and hopefully at some point coal plus railroad. But he might have the better 2-player setup, with having Acropolis, St. Peter's Basilica, the culture leader, opera in hand, architecture. So I was a bit worried that he also has a bit of a culture lead, that he might be better prepared for that switch into a 2-player game. At least with going back going for Gaudi and not having Genghis Khan any longer. He's not the strongest any longer. A bit unfortunate, of course, that the border conflict was now revealed, but there were that many strength events that's very likely that I would have gotten hit by 1. So I definitely can't complain about that. And at least now I'm the strongest again, meaning I, without any risk, can cede. I maybe could just push the politics of strength, as is the more potent strength event. Nonetheless, if I lose here in Shishka, I might drop a bit in strength. It could still take a while until I finish the railroad, and so I went for the safer seat with the barbarians, because Danny Boy will likely keep his culture lead for a while longer, and then that event can't affect myself negatively. Rats are revealed, which doesn't cost me any food, which is nice. And in this turn I will start with going for coal. As you can see, I will actually lose a mine, and I won't really be able to rebuild that. I could just rebuild a coal now, but instead I can also go, if I play the reserves for resources, for 2 upgrades to coal, putting me at the same or even a higher amount of resource production compared to when I would have just built an additional coal. And here I actually thought maybe it's fine losing that 1 mine. I mean, I would have preferred to keep it, obviously, but when I, in 2 turns, hopefully will be able to finish the railroad, then I will be at 9 resource production, and maybe it's fine if the population is then available as a free population to put it into something else. And yeah, so I went for those 2 upgrades, leaving me with 4 civil actions. A card that I normally would heavily consider here is the breakthrough, but when we take a look at the remaining leaders, all of them are actually in the row. Robespierre, not really doing that much. Maria, the food production might be a bit delayed, especially if I plan on finishing railroad first. Shakespeare, the journalisms are gone, and actually both of the operas. So the only leader that is playable for me, and actually also somewhat nice with me needing military actions, with being in Republic, is Catherine. And if I could take the breakthrough and Catherine, but there's also the thing that the team sports is actually the last happy face solution available, and there are not, apart from Arlene, no happy face solution leaders in H3. So at the end, I, instead of taking breakthrough and Catherine, decided to get Catherine at the next turn for civil action cheaper. I don't want to elect her this turn anyway, with Jan Žižka still doing a lot of work, and instead I took the efficient upgrade, which I soon will be able to use for the selective breeding upgrade. If I get the reserves, I might then still be able to go for the railroad soon in 2 turns, while getting maybe a food upgrade already going, and then sadly I leave the breakthrough available for Danny Boy here. Then I will draw some cards, some events, and also the Conquistadors, which could be an interesting tactic, even though with the upgraded medieval army tactic, the Conquistadors is not really that much better anyway. Danny Boy this turn goes for the architecture, with that can go for the 2nd upgrade to scientific methods for cheaper, and has actually enough resource to upgrade all of his things. Has upgraded his farms now, his mines. Population wise, he might be a little bit low though now, and might maybe need a bit of help from the events, or maybe he has a chance to build a 3rd farm at some point. He could having some issues here. He also takes that copy of Rifleman, but as it was a 3-player game, there's still another copy coming that I could potentially take, and then he also goes for the breakthrough that I left available for him. Now it's my turn, I'm still the strongest, and now I just decided to push the politics of strength in there, hoping that with the railroad I will be able to have a fine amount of strength. And especially with Danny Boy not having that much population, maybe I have some hopes. On the other hand, he has Rifleman in the wave, so it could backfire, but I was willing to take the risk here. Especially because with Danny Boy's nice culture setup with the Acropolis, it could be an idea to try countering that with a bit of a military push, and then the additional draws could just be an extremely important part of making that strategy work. So I seed the politics of strength into the deck. The scientific breakthroughs revealed, so we both actually gain quite a big science push. Danny Boy just upgraded his scientific methods, so he gets now a very big boost to his science productions. And this turn I first of all will start by building a warrior. The reason for that is that it will be my last H2 turn. I want to switch to my H2 leader now, meaning I will go for Catherine, and then I might need a warrior soon anyway, and actually already this turn, if I want to stay stronger, which I do want to do, because there are 2 strength events coming. The Barbarian's not affecting me, but it would still be nice if those affect Danny Boy. And if I build it warrior and take and develop the strategy, I'm not the weakest. I threaten to potentially take the yellow token. Maybe Danny Boy will follow up with some strength, but at least he has to do some investments maybe in order to do so. I mean, he could just go for some cheap Rifleman, of course, with the wave. And then I have 3 civil actions left. Potentially I could now go for 1 farm upgrade, take the reserves, which would allow me to finish the railroad at the next turn. Maybe that could be fine. Here instead I decided to take the rich land, the reserves, and build a step. So I am getting the rich land at the cost of not getting those farm upgrades going now. And maybe it could have been worth it to already go for an upgrade to selective breeding, but the resource could also still be very useful, and then those upgrades to selective breeding will really be extremely cheap with having the efficient upgrade on the rich land. And at the next turn, if I play the reserves, I can finish the railroad and go for one food upgrade. But of course, if I would go for a food upgrade now, I could already increase my population in 2 turns, which now I will not be able to do unless I get some help. It's the end of my turn. I will draw some cards, 2 colonies in the Independence Declaration. Danny Boy will indeed play the Wave of Nationalism, develops the Rifleman, goes for 2 upgrades, disbands actually a warrior in order to build a 3rd farm, so he is realizing that he is stuck on low food and is willing to go for that disband in order to have maybe a fine amount of population for H3, is still remaining the strongest, and then he has 3 civil actions left, will develop the opera with the discount from Antoni Gaudi, and then takes the efficient upgrade in the cavalryman. With that, H3 will start now. I am not the strongest. There are some strength events coming with that. I didn't want to push here, especially because I thought that with finishing the railroad and Danny Boy now losing 2 yellow tokens, having not the most free population, there is hopefully a good chance that I might actually stay the strongest after that and can then win those strength events. So I didn't push here. H3 starts. I will play the reserves. I will finish the railroad, going up to 9 resource production, and then I have some civil actions left, and I really wanted to get my food production going now. Of course, I could just take some yellow cards again, but I wanted to get 1 upgrade at least going now, meaning I have 2 civil actions left. And there are 2 yellow cards that I could just take from the 1 civil action area, the revolutionary idea and the urban growth. But there is also that copy of Rifleman, which might help me with going for some strength. And it was a bit of a tough call, because both of those yellow cards I thought are very useful for me. I'm now with the Rome Roads dropping to culture production. I don't have the most science production left, especially if I maybe want to go for blue technology or something. The revolutionary idea could just be extremely helpful. Also maybe if I want to go for a military push to develop some military technologies and air forces. And at the end, I actually went for the revolutionary idea and for Rifleman here. I'm not sure though if it is the right idea. The reason why I wanted to get the Rifleman here is that I just thought maybe I want to leave my military options open. Of course, it could also be useful for defense. But I have, at the moment I have 5 military actions, but at the moment I don't have a tactic. If I want to go for an H3 tactic, it would be some big investment with at least needing to develop 2 technologies to fulfill it in a non-outdated way. If I get something like modern army, I need to develop riflemen, cannons, tanks, maybe air forces. Potentially Danny Boy could just take Gandhi, even though he has to commit to that soon. And generally I was not sure if that is the right position to try setting up for some wars or something, because I'm culture-wise not that much behind. While Danny Boy has some advantages, I at least have now the bigger production, more civil actions, and I still think I also peacefully have some good chances here. And peacefully, the urban growth could just be very helpful. Of course, you have some solid production. You could argue maybe I don't need it that much, but it's still 3 resources, and it could potentially have an extremely good use case already at the next turn. Because one way how I think I would love to improve my position at the next way, if I aim towards a more peaceful game, would be if there should be a copy of multimedia on the row. It would be awesome if I could just take it, develop it, and build one. However, as you can see, without taking that urban growth, that is not an option for me. And I do think that could be very strong, and there will be some cards revealed until my next turn. There is Fleming in the game, there's Einstein in the game, there's the Hollywood in the game, there's the internet in the game. So going into multimedia, I think, would be quite strong, and I think getting that production going a turn earlier could just make a huge difference. Maybe I could just hope towards getting modern infantry, or I could hope to draw mechanized army and get a copy of tanks. At the moment, I just don't know how much I will really need the rifleman, and I think maybe it could have been actually better to grab the urban growth here. But of course, I might draw a good tactic in a war soon, and out of the sudden, a military push is on the table. But I think in this position, it just looks more to me like I might at the end want to try something peaceful than something military heavy, and the urban growth could give my could give me a real boost if I go for a peaceful approach. So I'm not sure if I maybe can just skip those riflemen. I feel like I should have just taken the urban growth here. Keep some events, the tactic and a colonization card. I draw the impact of balance, which Danny Boy is actually already nicely prepared for. Has in every production 6, so he has the perfect balance. Also, no production is more than 6, so he has the perfectly balanced production. But maybe I can make it seated as a neutral event, or maybe I can build up towards it. And I have a war already, so maybe that could still be an option. Generally, we are at the beginning of age 3 now, so we can take a look at the overview. As you can see, I'm only 15 culture behind. I have now the bigger production and more civil actions, so I was thinking it's definitely a decent position for me. But of course, if we stay in a peaceful game, Danny Boy has the Acropolis, can more easily go into an H3 government form, and that could certainly be an advantage with having Anthony Gaudi. Can go up to 10 culture production easily with just building an opera at his next turn, while I'm a bit dependent on what H3 cards will drop towards me. Nonetheless, I thought it might be a solid position. However, at the next turn of Danny Boy, I was already a little bit less confident again, because as you can see, Danny Boy is increasing his population, building an opera, and thanks to building that opera, out of the sudden his science discount from the Acropolis is big enough to go for that democracy that is coming down the row. He can develop it immediately, go up to 13 culture production, takes the military build up to defend himself, so a very clean turn, and he is now setting up some strong culture production, has now out of the sudden the same amount of actions as I do. So with that early democracy, I thought, ooh, that could be an important puzzle piece for Danny Boy to really stay ahead here, and maybe with the more civil actions that he's having, also make up for maybe the lower production that he has compared to me. Also, as you can see, there is a copy of multimedia even falling down to 2 civil actions for me, and with those developments I of course really needed to think about whether I want to, of course I was a bit annoyed that I didn't have the urban growth available. On the other hand, with Danny Boy getting that early democracy, maybe going for a bit of a war preparation setup could still be on the table. I thought about it. I even thought about declaring a war this turn and then going for, I think, building a rifleman and an upgrade, which could put me at 30 strength, and Danny Boy has not that much potential because he's limited by his military actions, but potentially could still go for 2 more cavalry units, 1 more infantry units if he's willing to destroy some stuff, and then he would win the war. And while he would need to do some destruction, I would have an even bigger culture lead to overcome, and I think it would not be the right thing to do. I could think about setting up for a war, but I don't really know if I get a tactic, and the games and 2-player games also sometimes ending relatively quickly, especially with now both of us playing on 8 civil actions. And so at the end I rather tried towards setting myself up for something peaceful, which could be challenging playing against the democracy, and I might need a bit of luck. But as you can see, there are both, and maybe we can go towards seeding now that we have, that I have talked about. Not that I won't go for war, instead I will push. I think the impact, no, actually, I used Catherine's ability. That was then the question here. Do I want to push? I thought that all of those events at the moment look like that they might mostly be something like a neutral event, and then I just get a culture for seeding, plus of course the chance to reveal a strength event already. And at the end I thought maybe over the course of H3 the yellow token swing could still be big enough. Danny Boy's next population will now be unhappy. Of course he might want to build an opera anyway, but he gets into his next area of the yellow bank more quickly, he won't get the next population out that quickly. So I felt like stealing the yellow token might still be worth it here, even if I miss out on the cultural and seeding and delay maybe those strength events. And yeah, then this turn I thought I want to set up for a big peaceful game, but I might need some luck on the key cards that I need for that. Movies and multimedia on the row, and engineering is coming down the row, which could be extremely helpful to save a lot of resources. There's a Hollywood in the game, there's Flaming in the game, and I thought if I should maybe get that combination up and running, I could have some really big potential. But of course Danny Boy could deny some of those cards like Flaming and Hollywood, so I was not certain. It would have been great now to already build a multimedia this turn, but nonetheless, after going for that upgrade to selective breeding to get more food production going, I just took the revolutionary idea, which I think I really need. I took the multimedia, which I definitely wanted to have available for the next turn. And then it was a bit of a question to me, what card do I want to make sure that I have it in hand? Do I want to take already a copy of movies now? There's another one coming down the row, but the other one will be in the discard spot, meaning Danny Boy could take the second one. He might not need it that much for himself, but if he denies that movie, then out of the sudden the flaming option is out of the window again, or at least he would not nearly be as strong, and Big Hollywood would not really be possible. But there's also the engineering coming down the row, which has the potential to save me a lot of resources. That card Danny Bay also doesn't really need, so it was the question of which card do I rather wanted to have available for certain, and at the end I went with the movies, because I can take the movies and the urban growth, so if the engineering is denied, at least I have already, for one build with the engineering, I get the urban growth to make up for that. And I was hoping that maybe Danny Boy wouldn't deny it. However, I think it's certainly something that he should consider, because even if I build 3 or 4 buildings, we are already speaking about 9, 12, or if I go for more, 15 resources saved, which is an extremely big amount and could just help me a lot also for potential impacts, for maybe wonder building at the last turn or something, save me some civil actions. So I thought he might deny it here. So that's my turn. I maybe could still switch into something military heavy if I get the right cards, but with having those techs in hand, I was mainly hoping that maybe I could have a shot at getting Hollywood and Flaming, and then that certainly has some big potential. I draw another war impact of science and an armed intervention. Danny Boy Seeds, and I was actually pleasantly surprised to see those crusades here, which, if I remembered correctly, were actually seeded by Arne still, so one reminder that in earlier ages there was actually still another culture, which we now only know as an ancient civilization that built some pyramids earlier on, a long time ago. But yeah, that event is still a reminder that that civilization existed. And I was happy to see it, because that 8 cultures that I get towards Danny Boy is certainly relevant. So I felt like I'm already not that much behind any longer, even though Danny Boy definitely still is the lead. Will go up to 16 culture production, takes the rockets to have an artillery technology for himself, which I think makes sense. For his last 4 civil actions, I'm not sure if I would do the same, because he has actually taken the space flight. The spaceflight will at the end be solid, but also not extremely strong for him with his current setup. And while it is of course fine to maybe secure himself a wonder and spend some civil actions for that already this turn, he is also blocking his wonder slot, meaning at the moment he can't really deny a Hollywood from me, which increases my chances that I get that Hollywood. And if Hollywood maybe would be the last wonder, maybe that could be fine, just making sure that he has a wonder now, and maybe with his lead he could be fine. But there's actually still the fast food chain, so I think maybe he should leave himself open towards the Hollywood, even though it's not the biggest wonder for himself at the moment, but he has still 2 operas already, could go for Marlene, maybe he still can, with some yellow cards, still at least build a 3rd opera, so the Hollywood would at least be a decent wonder, and he would leave himself open for denial. Additionally, with taking the space flight, he's not denying the engineering, which I think is an extremely strong technology for me. And of course, it doesn't really do anything for him, but potentially it could be worth the hate draft, or he could just take some yellow cards. So I'm not sure if the space flight is the right call here by him, but he has a solid wonder now. He has more free civil actions at the following turns, and yeah, that will just give him some, definitely, very likely over 20 culture, maybe even something like 25, and then it's a very solid wonder that he's having. I see the impact of balance into the deck here, thinking that I, with building a multimedia now, will at least be equal to Danny Boy, and at the end of my turn I will actually do something that gives me the potential to make the impact of balance even bigger. The event revealed is the call to arms, so Danny Boy loses some civil actions now. And this turn I will go for the multimedia, I will take the engineering, I will play the revolutionary idea, I will develop the engineering, I will then, with the urban growth, build a multimedia. I could now take urban growth and reserves, and having more resources could be extremely relevant for the Hollywood, but nonetheless, here I just wanted to get the second multimedia going. Could have disbanded a warrior and taken one of those, but I still have to be a bit careful also about potentially Danny Boy setting up a little bit of military, so I didn't want to delete a unit here, especially with there being more strength events to be revealed. Also, the politics of strength will be soon coming, so I was willing to miss out on those yellows, but there are still a lot that I could maybe take later on. And then with the last civil action, I actually took the mechanized agriculture here, which is really not that much needed, and I could just use the civil action effectively to play the revolutionary idea already. But I have that impact of balance seeded, and I have now, thanks to the multimedias and my strong resource production, if I go for more food production, I could make the impact of balance very big. Of course, if I get the Hollywood, I might need most of my resource for that, but if I have 2 extra resources lying around, it could still be a good option to just go for a farm upgrade. Additionally, there are still 2 copies of efficient upgrade in the deck. Maybe at some point I can grab one for cheap and can even go for a farm upgrade for cheap if that still will be in time. And of course, I don't know, maybe Danny Boy will finish the space flight quickly, or the Hollywood will be very late and he can finish the space flight, take the Hollywood away. It's not a given that I can go for the Hollywood, and then maybe having the option to build up a bigger impact could potentially be important. So that was my turn. Keep 1 war in hand, but discard the aggression. I draw a hybrid war, the mechanized army. But I think that there are still tanks in the deck actually. And there is also this impact of industry, which I was happy to see because it's certainly a solid impact. Even though going up to 10 science production, I was not willing to push the impact of science at the beginning of my turn, because I thought maybe Danny Boy could go towards Bill Gates or generally into computers, and I just wasn't willing to commit to that impact, even though I might need some good impacts, but still it was felt a bit too risky for me. Danny Boy Seeds, the last one of the strength events is revealed from H1, and it's the Barbarians, which will cost Danny Boy a population, which is a bit annoying for him. He actually loses a mine here, interestingly, disbands that warrior, builds an HA lab, upgrades that with the efficient upgrade, and with that it's, of course, it's already a sign of what he might be doing. He is going for Bill Gates here, elects him, takes the Air Forces, and with that has now 10 resource production, will get a relatively strong Bill Gates bonus at the end, and can maybe build up some more stuff, maybe prepare better for impacts, while still being able to finish the space flight. And I think it could be a good decision. I'm not 100% certain, because again, maybe leaving himself open towards some denial could be relevant, because Flaming together with the Hollywood is just an extremely strong combination. He has at least the operas, there's a copy of multimedia coming down the row, which he could also, if he kept Godi, maybe still go for at the next turn, and then he could maybe fight for Flaming and potentially deny him from me, and if he gets multimedia plus Flaming, that also would really score him a lot of culture, but of course he could have some issues with having enough resources for all of that. Maybe he also was actually still a bit afraid of my military potential, because while I rather plan to go towards the Hollywood, of course, depending on what I get, I have now this tactic, I have some wars. Of course, I can also, if I see that Danny Boy is lone resource, I could still try something with the military, but I mean, at least he has those yellow cards. So Bill Gates definitely not bad, but like with taking the space flight, I also was somewhat happy to see it, because at the moment it just looks like he can't really deny neither the Hollywood or the Flaming. Flaming definitely not. Hollywood maybe, if he is willing to finish the space flight early, but that also might be somewhat risky for him. Now it's my turn. I see the impact of industry. The politics of strength is not revealed, but actually there's another strength event, so that deck will be a deck full of strength events, and with me having been the strongest so far, that's of course very nice for me. The Crime Wave is revealed, costing Danny Boy some resources, and here we can see that there is the Hollywood revealed. Flaming is coming down the row. I will grab the Hollywood immediately, because potentially Danny Boy could play the reserves, finish the space flight, and still has enough civil actions left to deny the Hollywood. He might be willing to do it, even though it would maybe also be a bit risky if I then countered with a military push, but still, the Hollywood, I know now that I get Hollywood and Fleming, so here we can maybe see the downside of Danny Boy having gone for Bill Gates. If he would have left himself open, maybe I can't take both Hollywood and Fleming, so he could have denied me the combination, but it's still, maybe I could just go for Fleming, let him finish the spaceflight and take the Hollywood away, and then I myself could go for fast food chains. It still would not be that easily possible, but maybe I would have had it a bit more difficult on how to decide how I want to play the turn. Now I can make certain that I have the Hollywood, and I know for certain that I will be able to go for Fleming at the next turn. I have 2 civil actions left. I thought about if I need to deny that military theory, because Danny Boy has a bunch of science saved up, and if he has something like positional army tactic, could declare war, go for military theory, rockets, go for 2 rockets, reveal the tactic, and maybe it could be a bit tricky. In either way, first of all, I will actually take and develop the civil service, fixing my corruption, preparing me for some impacts, having even more civil actions for the next turns, and I'm still back at 2 civil actions where I was before. And while maybe there's a little bit of a threat and maybe Danny Boy could even go for potentially losing war, I thought it's very likely that I can defend, because it's likely that the second copy of Air Forces will be revealed before my next turn, and if that is revealed, even if it's on 3, I can play the Revolutionary Idea and the reserves that I will take instead of the military theory this turn, and then I can go for 2 Air Forces, a Warrior and another Air Force, which of course would require a lot of distraction, but I also would win the war then even by a bit of a lead, so I'm not sure if that would be worth it for Danny Boy, and with that I thought I don't need to deny the military theory. It might of course still be very relevant for impacts, but for an impact of progress I'm very nicely prepared anyway. Of course, impact of government, variety, but I thought about the reserves, I calculated my resources, and I came to the conclusion that I will have 2 more turns left, and if at the next turn I get the engineering genius, then the reserves actually makes the difference between being able to go for an extra H3 building or not. And also if I get 2 of those 4 resource yellow cards that I can use towards using some also urban growth reserves that I can use to make the Hollywood bigger, then also the reserves I think makes a difference. I'm not sure, maybe I'm misremembering it, but definitely if I get the engineering genius, and I think also if I get 2 more cards, this copy of reserves, yes, makes the difference between going for an additional building. With that it could have a huge impact. I thought that the chance that Danny Boy will go for war is very low, and if so, then only if the air forces are late, maybe it could be a bit bad. So I went for the reserves and I increased my population. I draw some cards. Impact of technology is actually looking quite nice for me, so that could be a nice one. Impact of agriculture at the moment being equal. Danny Boy doesn't see it, also doesn't go for a war. He is actually taking the tanks here, playing the military build up, getting some upgrades in basically for free. And yeah, maybe he's sensing that there is another strength event coming, or fearing it, and he's also right about it. The politics of strength is on top, and so he is for free preparing for that. I mean, he won't miss out on some draws because he's going for the military theory, makes sure to be the strongest for now, and then builds an additional lab with Bill Gates, goes for even more resource production at the next turn with the reserves. He potentially has enough resource to finish the space flight and build another opera if he wants to. Now we are at my second last turn, and I can't see 2 impacts, so despite me losing some draws now and even giving Danny Boy 5 additional draws, I was still willing to push, because I can push the impact of technology this turn. There's a chance that it could be revealed at an awkward time. After Danny Boy's turn, but before my next one, then we would tie, so it would still not be bad. But there's also the potential that it could give me +8 if Danny Boy leaves me a technology, as we will see at the end of my turn. And then at my next turn I can see either the impact of agriculture as a probably slightly good event, as I will likely go for the mechanized agriculture and I will actually take an efficient upgrade this turn, or there might also be a chance, if Danny Boy doesn't increase the science production, that I might be able to build another multimedia, overtake him, and then see the impact of science into the deck. So I see the impact of tech. The politics of strength is revealed, so I will have to work with the impacts that I have in hand, but I was happy about the choices that I had here. And in this turn I will go for Flaming, I will elect him, I can go for one movie, build one, build another one. Potentially I could build a multimedia in a preparation for the impact of science, but it could also give some hints towards Danny Boy's. There are still 2 copies of computers, he might then go for more science production, increases Bill Gates' bonus for the end of the game, and the movie is just giving me more culture production, more culture for the Hollywood, and I was hoping that if I now stay at 10, maybe Danny Boy could go for the computers, but I will leave him the satellites, which I could have taken for myself. But I know that I won't draw the impact of progress any longer, and I thought maybe if Danny Boy goes for satellites, he doesn't go for computers, and then I can actually see the impact of science if I build another multimedia at the next turn, because at the next turn, with there being actually a copy of Engineering Genius, I have just enough resources to build another either multimedia or movie, finish the Hollywood for a big amount of points. Also, I will play the revolutionary idea. That gives me 15 science, meaning I can go for the mechanized agriculture the next turn plus another technology for 8. There are the satellites, and there's another copy of computers. If Danny Boy doesn't deny it, likely it will stay on 3, and then it could turn out to be a bit costly for him if he doesn't deny it. I can go for 2 techs, preparing for the impact of technology. And so for my remaining 2 civil actions, there was the thought of whether I want to, for example, just take the satellites or computers here, making sure that I have those 2 techs, or if I want to leave that uncertain, maybe make Danny Boy do a denial, which at least might potentially come at a cost for himself. And instead, and that's also what I did, I can take the efficient upgrade, which, if the impact of balance is not revealed before my next turn, I can use to make the impact of balance by +4 bigger, which is nice. Also, in case I can't see the impact of science, it could make my impact of agriculture bigger by +2. And also, in case Danny Boy leaves, lets the other copies of computers available, and maybe he goes for some computer upgrades, there's a chance that I could use the efficient upgrade to also upgrade an alchemy to computers and build a multimedia in order to go for some bigger science production. And with it being more likely that a computer stay in 3 for Danny Boy, with me having enough civil actions to do all of the things that I want to do at the next turn, I took the efficient upgrade here. I won't get any new draws, but I have some impacts to work with, and I have the aggression that I need to defend against Danny Boy if he wants to go for an aggression. And I mean, with my big flaming production, out of the sudden, I am very close to Danny Boy, and of course Danny Boy will get a big Bill Gates bonus, but I will get a big Hollywood and some decent impact, so at this point I was growing quite confident. Now it's Danny Boy's last turn, he just got some additional draws, so he definitely should have something available to seed. He seeds an impact, the impact of industry is revealed, which was seeded by me. Bill Gates can sometimes score not that great in an impact because his labs don't count, so I actually get +5 against Danny Boy here. He will go for the satellites, develop them, place the reserves for food, interestingly. If he would have played it for resource, he could have gone for an opera and built a space flight, but then of course he also would need to destroy something. Now he can finish the space flight and then can actually first of all deny the computers from me, so I won't get a second tech. Me playing the revolutionary idea the last turn, maybe being a sign towards Danny Boy that the impact of tech is coming, and then he has now some resource left to build a knights. Could give him some points for an impact of competition or impact of harmony, so that could be impacts that I might be looking out towards, with him being willing to sacrifice going for another opera. Maybe impact of population could be in there as well. Yeah, and that's the end of his turn. I see the impact of science. Danny Boy didn't increase the science production, and I will of course sacrifice 3 culture, 1 production, 2 for the Hollywood if I go for multimedia instead of a movie, but the impact of science just a lot better impact than the impact of agriculture, so that should be worth it. Even though when there's an impact of happiness, then it's already getting somewhat close. Impact of tech is revealed, so that was now indeed revealed at not such a great time, but as I can go for only 1 tech anyway with Danny Boy having gone for the denial, I would only have been able to improve that impact by +4 anyway. There also would have been the impact of balance, which I would have improved, so just was likely at least a 50-50 shot, maybe even higher, depending on the other impacts, that an impact is revealed that I would improve during my turn. I will increase my population, I can build one multimedia, and now I have just enough resources left so that I can build first 2 steps of the Hollywood with the engineering, then just use the engineering for the remaining of the Hollywood, scoring 46 culture with it, so that Hollywood at the end actually turned out to be quite big. And then I have some civil actions left, which I can use to go for a farm upgrade, which will give my impact of balance +4, and then I can't really do anything else and will just grab some cards. And with that very big Hollywood, we can see that before the final impacts, it's actually looking quite good for me out of the sudden, showcasing the big potential of Fleming plus the Hollywood. Danny Boy will get the Bill Gates bonus, but I have some good impacts in there, and at that point I was convinced that I will win this game. We have the impact of balance, which gives me +4 against Danny Boy. We have the impact of science, which gives me +10 against him. Then the impact of competition was seeded by Danny Boy. The knight that he built at the last turn gave him +1 in that impact. He's catching up a little bit. Impact of colonies there was not a single colony seeded in that game, so that's kind of funny. So that just gives +0/+0. And the last impact is the impact of progress, which is good for me, but even bigger for Danny Boy. So he is catching up some points, but even with the Bill Gates bonus, he at the end is still behind me, and at the end I'm able to win this game. So that was an interesting finish, showcasing the strength of the Hollywood. It was a very aggressive early game. Arne got very heavily punished for missing out on the knights. Was maybe a bit greedy going for Isabella and not leaving himself open for the strength leaders, but of course, he might have hoped to get the chance of grabbing the second copy of Knights. Getting a replacement leader for Alex quickly could be nice, so it's hard to judge, because I might have gone for the same. Sometimes you need to take some risks, sometimes there will be situations where at the end you can't really do that much about it. He took the warfare at least, but with the last copy of Swordsman being late, he just was in a position. And of course also I got quite a bit lucky. After discarding some aggressions, I drew 2 new ones in not that many draws, which allowed me to punish Arne. Danny Boy went for a blunder as well, and then we out of the sudden both had an early H2 war, and Arne got hit by some bad strength events as well at that point. They just all went very bad for him. He resigned. And then after the resignation, while I was still thinking that my position has some potential, I was a bit afraid that Danny Boy's position might be better suited for 2-player games with the Acropolis. I then thought it might be fine, but then the early democracy was revealed. I thought about if maybe I should go for a more military-oriented play, but I played towards the Hollywood. Maybe Danny Boy should have potentially thought a bit more about leaving himself open for denial, maybe denying the engineering, which at the end saved me 15 resources, so played a big part in being able to go for that big of a Hollywood, and maybe being able to deny that would have been more important than securing himself the space flight, with the fast food chain still being the deck. But at least with the Hollywood timing, I still would have been able to grab that Hollywood, so it's the question if at the end that would have changed the result. And at the end, with that big Hollywood, I was able to overtake Danny Boy in culture and are able to win that first game of the new Intermezzo Championship season, which of course I'm very happy about. And with that, we can maybe take a quick look at the standings, as there has already also one game finished where I wasn't involved. So we will take a quick look at the standings, and then we are already at the end of the video. And in that other game, Payada was able to win against Arne and Danny Boy, meaning I and Payada have had now a good start in our first game. We both are at 5 points. Arne and Danny Boy had also an equal start. Both are being at 2 points with 2 games finished, so for both of them not an ideal start, but still there are 4 games remaining for them, so everything is possible. And for Bright Future we don't know anything, as for him no game has finished yet. Alright, and with that we are at the end of the video. I hope you're looking forward towards seeing that Intermezzo Championship season. As said, I hopefully will be able to cover it fully. And yeah, then I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.